What was supposed to be a proud moment, a celebration of record-breaking finals viewership, has turned into an absolute PR disaster that's shaking the foundation of the league's credibility. ESPN proudly announced that the 2025 finals opener had shattered records, claiming it drew the largest audience in nearly 3 decades. But as fans and analysts began digging into the numbers, a darker truth began to unfold. One that suggests the league's so-called victory might be built on deception rather than success. The WNBA, a league that spent years fighting for respect and relevance, may have just destroyed its credibility in a desperate attempt to look bigger than it actually is. At first, ESPN's announcement sounded like a triumph. According to their glowing reports, Game 1 of the Liberty vs. Lynx finals averaged 1.9 million viewers and peaked at 2.5 million. The network called it a milestone moment, the most watched finals since 1997. The headlines were glowing, the tone celebratory, and for a brief moment, it seemed like women's basketball had finally crossed into mainstream territory. But then, silence. No trending hashtags. No viral highlights. No barbershop debates or sports radio segments. Even ESPN's own shows, usually quick to capitalize on a narrative, barely mentioned it. For something allegedly watched by millions, the finals had somehow vanished from public consciousness overnight. That's when suspicion turned into investigation. Fans tried to verify the numbers through Nielsen, the long-standing authority on television ratings. What they found, or rather didn't find, made everything worse. The official data wasn't publicly accessible. ESPN wasn't citing the verified Nielsen report. They were using estimates while keeping the raw numbers locked away. It was as if a student had graded their own test and declared they'd aced it. Red flags began waving everywhere, and within hours, analysts were questioning whether ESPN and the WNBA had cooked the books. The real smoking gun came buried deep within the fine print. It turns out Nielsen had recently introduced a new ratings methodology called Big Data Plus Panel. It sounded fancy, modern, something to keep up with changing viewing habits, but in practice, it was a loophole large enough to drive a bus through. This system didn't just count people watching from home. It counted anyone within proximity of a screen showing the game. Someone grabbing a beer in a bar with the game playing silently in the background? Counted. A gym-goer jogging on a treadmill while the broadcast played on a muted TV? Counted. Travelers walking past an airport lounge where the finals were on for 10 seconds? Counted too. It meant millions of so-called viewers might have had no idea they were part of this alleged record-breaking audience, and here's where it gets truly damning. When fans compared these inflated ghost views to Caitlin, Clark's playoff numbers earlier in the year, the discrepancy was undeniable. Clark's games had generated genuine, verifiable audiences, fans who tuned in deliberately to watch her play. Her matchups with the Indiana Fever were setting real records, not statistical illusions. But after her injury sidelined her, the league's engagement tanked. Suddenly, without their biggest draw, the WNBA was trying to sell a finals no one seemed to care about. It's no coincidence that the suspicious new rating system rolled out right before these finals began. For many in sports media, it looked like a calculated attempt to create the illusion of momentum, right when the league's star power disappeared. The irony is that the league had 2 of its most marketable players, Caitlin, Clark and Sophie Cunningham, on the sidelines, watching as others tried to carry the show. Clark had already proven she could pull real audiences, while Cunningham, after joining the Fever, was generating genuine fan interest with her skill and personality. But instead of capitalizing on these organic stars, the WNBA and its broadcast partner chose to chase artificial success through creative math. They were counting shadows as spectators, hoping no one would notice. Fans did notice. Social media erupted. Reddit threads exploded with outrage. The phrase "ghost watchers" began trending, mocking the absurdity of millions of invisible fans who somehow didn't exist in real life or online. People pointed out how finals tickets were selling for as little as $6, how arenas weren't even sold out, and how sports radio completely ignored the supposed record-breaking event. It was like claiming a blockbuster movie dominated the box office while theaters sat empty. The numbers didn't add up because they were never meant to. The situation became even more embarrassing when ESPN's own internal coverage, or lack thereof, was put under a microscope. Their flagship shows like First Take and SportsCenter barely mentioned the finals ratings story, which should have been front-page material if it were legitimate. Analysts began speculating that even ESPN's staff didn't buy into their own data. If your own network isn't celebrating your historic success, it's probably because they know it's not real. Meanwhile, random baseball games and NASCAR events were generating more online conversation than the finals that supposedly captivated millions. The truth hit hard. The WNBA wasn't celebrating growth, it was staging a cover-up. After Caitlin Clark's injury, the league's numbers plummeted. Attendance declined, merchandise sales dipped, and mainstream attention evaporated. ESPN, with deep financial ties to the league, had every reason to help prop up the illusion that things were fine. But the internet is relentless. Once people started cross-referencing data, the illusion shattered. Suddenly, what was meant to be a celebration of women's basketball became a symbol of corporate deceit and desperation. And the fallout? Devastating. Advertisers who rely on accurate viewership metrics to determine sponsorship value now find themselves questioning everything. If these numbers were exaggerated, then millions in ad revenue might have been spent on phantom audiences. Trust is the most valuable currency in sports media, and the WNBA just spent it recklessly. What's worse, this scandal damages the credibility of legitimate progress the league has made. Players like Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham have genuinely expanded the audience for women's basketball. They've brought excitement, visibility, and new fans. But this scandal overshadows their efforts, turning real growth into collateral damage in a war for ratings. The shift in measurement, counting passive viewers in public spaces, was more than deceptive. It was fraudulent. Imagine a bar with 50 people watching football while one corner TV plays the WNBA Finals muted. Under the new system, all 50 are counted as Finals viewers. Multiply that by thousands of venues, and suddenly you've got millions of viewers who didn't even know the game was on. It's corporate alchemy, turning air into numbers. Now the WNBA faces a reckoning. The harsh truth is that without Caitlin Clark, the finals failed to capture mainstream interest. The league's leadership knows it, ESPN knows it, and now the public knows it too. Instead of facing that reality and rebuilding around genuine stars, they chose deception. They tried to fake relevance instead of earning it. In doing so, they've insulted the intelligence of their most loyal fans, the people who actually care about women's basketball and have supported it through its ups and downs. When compared to the transparency of leagues like the NFL or NBA, this fiasco looks even worse. Those leagues verify and publish legitimate numbers. The WNBA, desperate to sit at the grown-up table, took shortcuts, and now it's paying the price. The damage could be catastrophic. If sponsors start demanding refunds, if TV deals get renegotiated based on real numbers, and if networks begin to doubt the WNBA's credibility, the financial collapse could be swift and brutal. The saddest part is that this entire disaster was avoidable. Fans weren't demanding NFL-level ratings. They just wanted honesty. They would have respected steady, authentic growth. But instead, the WNBA chased validation through manipulation, and in doing so, they handed their critics every argument they needed. What could have been a small step forward has turned into a colossal step back, a self-inflicted wound that may take years to heal.